Hello and welcome to episode 122 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Dragoon1701, and in lieu of my usual rampantly false things that I say about my co-hosts, I thought we'd go for a little truth today. So tell me, Greendragoon, when was the first time you logged into Stowe?
About 2 weeks before the launch. So it was when they went into open beta, and I've actually found out about it.
Did you try it those first couple days when it was just utterly unplayable?
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of pop in and on. Got in at times. Only downside was that
they fixed that after a couple of days, and it was great after that. But I mean, the first couple of days of open beta, it was just, I mean, the lag was just incredible. I mean, you can't even imagine.
Yeah. My downside was that my pre-order bonus was the join trill, so I wanted to make a join trill, but because the pre-order bonuses didn't kick in until like a week after the launch, I had to go make something else as my first character. It wasn't until like much later I got around to like, oh, I should totally make a join trill.
I had exactly the same experience. I logged in open beta as well, and had the same experience. I wanted to make a trill. I just went ahead and made a trill in early access, and that was my main ever since, an unjoined trill. And finally, I got around to making a joined trill, which is actually the character I'm on right now. So, Mark, when was the first time you logged into Stowe?
Oh, sometime about halfway through season 3. Back when they had the Deferi ambassador standing next to the water fountain in ESD, asking everyone to come help their planet because they're being attacked by the Brain.
That's
so
right.
This would have been right around the time of the first featured episode series.
Was that the first featured episode, or was Spectres the first?
No, Defera was the first, and then Spectre was after that.
Ah, okay. Long time ago.
I honestly don't remember.
Well, I asked this, of course, because starting tomorrow is the 5th anniversary of Stowe, the event. Actually, I think the doors open in February, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe the official date is February 2nd.
February 2nd. Well, 5 years is a long time. And, well, is it the 5th year or is it the 6th year?
We are hitting year number 6.
Hitting year number 6. Awesome. So the 6th anniversary, as the chat room is correcting me now. See, that's the downside of live, is if you say something wrong, you have to just like correct yourself. You can't just edit it out. So yeah, 6th anniversary, and 5 of those years we've had the Foundry, which is what I came back for. I actually left the game after like 3 months and came back as soon as I heard the Foundry was going to be a thing.
I actually started messing with the Foundry like a month or 2 after I started playing the game. Because, you know, I'm one of those people that whenever I use any sort of a computer program, I look to see what all of the little buttons are in the user interface. And I noticed that there were buttons for Foundry stuff. So I'm like, what does this button do? And that's how I got started. I actually have never deleted a Foundry character, so the Foundry character I use on the live server for all my testing stuff is actually older than most of my non-Foundry characters.
Got some people in the chat room chiming in. Salaknar says that he's a 6-year vet. He was here in closed beta in 2009. And Primar joined us in 2012.
I wasn't paying close enough attention at the time to get into closed beta.
Me neither.
I actually bought a copy of the game because it came with one of those bronze Starfleet badge pins, and it sounded like something that would be cool to play.
And here we are, many years later.
Actually, I was thinking about it. Right about now is about 4 years ago would have been the first time I started picking up the Foundry. of play around with it.
Because, of course, the Foundry was on Tribble for quite a while before it went live. Which was kind of good and bad for us that had been testing it, because, of course, there wasn't any automatic thing for porting over your mission. But the nice thing is that you could open Tribble. You could have an instance of Tribble up and an instance of the live game at the same time, so you could copy and paste between it if you wanted to.
Or, copy to a Word document or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But actually, I found that it was kind of a good thing, because rebuilding my mission from the ground up made me do a lot more things with it and improve a lot of it. I always used to have the same experience with, essays and stuff in school. The time I lost a good 12-page essay due to a computer error and me not saving when I should have saved. Rewriting it from the ground up actually made it better the second time around.
The worst thing I ever lost due to a computer error was a set of script files that I'd created for Space Empires 5 as part of the AI setup routines. Because in that game, every time it spawns an AI player, it runs a script to give the AI player all of the little texts that they start with. And in order to have a properly set up AI player, someone needs to create the script that the game is going to use for setting up the player. Then, for the game to actually use the scripts, you need to compile them. See, I still have copies of the compiled scripts. It's the uncompiled scripts that I lost.
Of course, means you can't make any edits.
Well, what it really means is that I would have to recreate my own work if I wanted to change it.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the Foundry entry on the Stowe Wiki here, and it looks like the Foundry hit Tribble, which would have been after the Red Shirt private testing, on December 2nd, 2010, and which would have been before the first anniversary, and then was released holodeck March 28th, 2011, so a couple of months later. Although it does say that, make comment that they released 3 Federation and 1 Klingon episode over to live early to coincide with the 1-year anniversary.
One of them was Galactrix's The Syndicate Extraction, which was an excellent mission. One of them was Rogue Enterprise's First Cause Then Effect, which of course is one of the most popular Foundry missions.
Was not one of them.
Wasn't it? I could have sworn
it was the Longing, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Demon, The Syndicate Distraction, and Unholy Alliances Part 1.
Oh, okay. I was wrong. See, I get to be wrong like every 5 minutes tonight. So.
Does it feel like we've been playing this game way too long that we're forgetting things?
Yes, it has. This is like 5 years of our life here, so for the Foundry part of it.
Also, there's the feeling of when people ask you about stuff, and then you realize that the thing that you're talking about doesn't exist anymore.
I'm kind of glad that isn't the thing yet.
So anyway, we are here in the orbit of Nimbus 3 because in one of our previous episodes we were talking about space stations, and we mentioned the Nimbus 3 space station, which is kind of a unique space station, but it's actually not one we have access to in the Foundry. So Dragoon, if you want to give us a little tour of the exterior.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can clearly see they've got some of the generic station parts with the claw-like structures and the platforms.
Some of the stuff we do have access to. And you can kind of put those together and sort of configure.
Exact color scheme of those assets, because this is a dark gray with green window added to it. I'm not sure we have that specific color, but the same shape.
I'd have to go look. I mean,
yeah.
It may also be the lighting. Lighting is kind of dark in this sector.
But there is some unique parts of this station that I don't know that exists anywhere else. Little
Yeah,
sort
we've
of
got
like fusion reactor area at the bottom there.
Yeah, we got this underside thing, which I'm not
Looks vaguely
recognizing from anywhere
Klingonish,
else.
possibly Cardassian. And then the
Possibly
top
Orion.
part.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an Orion
Has these-
space station, and it
Yeah.
actually does vaguely resemble some of the aspects of the Klingon fleet star bases. Vaguely.
Yeah, nothing that I'd recognize directly.
I mean, it's mostly
kind of an
the
amalgam.
choices of color. It
Yeah,
has
and the
that
top one
bronze
has
metal.
Federation colors to it, but I'm not specifically placing the.
The solar panel array it has on the top is very similar to the ones that are used for stations like the one in orbit of Vulcan. But these are colored differently than the ones you have that are actual
And actually,
Federation.
If you look at it,
it's a different gray than the usual Federation.
There's a
style.
Federation logo on the side of the top part.
Is there? Maybe they
Yeah.
stole it.
Well, it is the Orions we're talking about. They steal a lot of things.
Yes.
Oh, I get what they're doing here, because this was originally a joint project between the Federation Romulan and Klingons.
Oh, yeah. That Melise in the chat room is saying that.
Sorry, Melise, we're a bit slow.
I completely forgot about that because, it's such a... Obviously, a lot of people want to block Star Trek V out of their minds. And it is almost a minor plot point. It doesn't affect the movie a whole lot other than something giving the impetus for it a little bit.
I just noticed something really weird about the Starfleet logo. It has holes in it cut for the windows. Because you have the Starfleet logo and all these windows making holes in the logo.
Kind of makes it look faded.
Yeah.
In any case, that's what we were referring to in that previous episode. Another thing from the previous episode, I think I confused some people with my terminology. I was talking about the planet that our starbase is orbiting, and I was calling it a planetoid, even though we had used the planet asset from Stowe. They call it a planet. But I was thinking more in terms of like real life size, because of course the planets in Stowe are very small, much, 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 much smaller than they are in real life. But they are almost around the size of like a little planetoid, like Ceres in the asteroid belt, the real one. And so that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe this is just our starbase is in orbit of a little planetoid somewhere out in the far reaches of the Archer system.
Well, I mean,
like a minor planet.
Yeah,
I will point out that it isn't like there's like some size limit on the outer system. Like you can't have gas giants or bigger rocky planets in the outer systems.
No.
Obviously, their speed needs to be
We just found
proportional to the gravitational pull, but
possibly. We just found a new one in our own solar system. Possibly. We have the best evidence so far that it's there. But anyway, yeah, that was my reasoning there. So we have at least some kind of minor news. There's a bug going around with publishing. Publishing doesn't seem to be working at the moment. Primar has kindly submitted a bug report for us, and hopefully we will get some movement on that. But for the moment, we just have to sort of build and not publish. That's okay. Roll with the punches. The other news is that in the recent Priority 1 interview with Zeronious Rex and Salami Inferno, the Foundry came up a little bit. Dragoon, I think you wrote down what the question and response was, so why don't you tell us that?
I did. If I had been smart, I would have actually bothered to pull it up before the show.
We're making all of the classic live broadcast mistakes tonight.
Well, I gotta give them something to come back for. All right, so when asked about the Foundry, Maria Zeronious Rex piped up and said, Without going into too many details, we have a little time on the schedule quite soon to try and add a new feature that I think will be much appreciated. She also went on to comment that she and Nick, which would be Taco Fangs, will continue to add assets. She also apologized for a lull in asset additions recently, but said she's been dealing with computer crashes that she hopes will get worked out.
Lovely. I think we all know how that goes.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with Twitter has been crashing my Opera browser for the past, I don't know, half a week or so. It's quite annoying. So yeah, we might possibly get a new feature sometime here this year. That's quite interesting. Obviously, a lot of possibilities of what it could be.
Yeah,
I mean,
the speculation kind of went rampant on the forum.
all right, so I don't
no
think
one
it's
really
gonna be
has a solid idea as to what it is at all.
I don't think it's going to be a super huge feature.
Yeah.
But a little hint, and I don't know that this is directly connected, but a while back, Zero had kind of let slip on one of her live streams that they were starting to look at revamping the mission journal.
Mm.
So it could be this is related to that.
That would be a perfect time to redo some of the Foundry search interface, which, of course, I think we all probably agree that it definitely could be better.
And I know somebody had piped up in the speculation thread that about campaign support, and that is something that has been commented on by the devs in the past as a feature that they thought could be brought in without too much complication.
Was that back when D-Stall was here, or was that?
Yeah, I want to say it was one of those features that.
Or no, I think it was Gecko that was commenting.
Yeah, it was Gecko.
A few features from Neverwinter that they were wanting to port back over.
And then they looked at it and realized, like, oh, this is actually really hard.
You know what? My only comment in that thread so far has been to remind people that don't assume anything is easy.
No.
Especially if you don't know anything about programming or their back end, how that any of that works. Which I don't, so I tend not to assume anything is easy.
For me, it's a matter of assuming varying qualities of hardness. Because, completely coding something from scratch that you've never even done in the game before, that seems hard. Which actually seems to be the reason why we don't have the ability to make PvP Foundry maps, is because of the fact that the Foundry was not coded to support PvP at all. And they would have to add that foundation before they could give us the ability to make PvP Foundry maps.
Which, as you know, I think would be an excellent thing if they had that. I think it would revitalize PvP, or at least help. But
it would certainly make it more interesting if you could create PvP scenarios instead of just simply playing the same 3 or 4 ones that we already have.
I know, it's one of those things I always kind of find myself at a loss because I don't really understand PvP well enough to say what makes better or worse PvP.
Well, there's a lot been written, actually, about that, especially with regards to, multiplayer shooters, which essentially Stowe would be if we're talking ground. It'd be in the vein of Halo and that sort of thing. And there are ways to balance PvP maps and ways to create good, thinking in 3 dimensions always tends to make a great multiplayer map. I remember, I think it was Quake 2 or Quake 3 that was one of the first actual 3D shooters that was multiplayer, and it was revolutionary because it had 3-dimensional multiplayer maps. Go up, you go down, people are shooting at you from all directions. Lots of fun.
Well, in that case,
and
how about
one of my personal favorites was the later, I think, Aliens versus Predator games.
Oh yeah, lots of fun there.
Well,
You know, you could
Verticality is
actually,
the thing.
if you were an alien, you could literally climb the walls and hide in ventilation ducts that other people couldn't even see were there.
I'm just thinking, if verticality is something good to add, they could always do a EVA VP map where you're in
That
zero
would be-
G with jetpacks.
Yeah, that would be fun.
That sounds hilarious, yeah.
Anyway,
So anyway, that's probably a long shot because it would be quite a lot of work to program something like that. More realistically are things with the search engine. Obviously, we have talked long and hard about the search engine, and Captain Hunter on the forums has come up with a really good visual breakdown of that. He came up with it years ago, and still has it in his signature if anyone wants to see. But basically, it would make you sort of pick the mission you would want to play, the type of mission you want to play, before it ever takes you to a list of missions. And that would help narrow it down for you, along with various other things, kind of aimed towards seeing new missions better and seeing all of the missions better, because, of course, currently we have that thing where it only shows you 50 at a time, and there's no next button. At the very basic level, the next button is like the first thing we need. But I don't know. It could be other things. It could be campaign support. It could be one of the things I would dearly love to have, which is teleporters.
that would be very nice.
I would consider that a feature rather than just assets, because
Well,
I think it would take some coding.
It is a function that we know that they do in the actual official missions, so it's not something that would
They
be like
can
potent,
instantly send you from one part of the map to the other, but it's hard to know on the back end how they actually do that. If it takes some...
This is true.
I don't know how hard it's going to be, but it's one of those things that probably couldn't just be added in like with detail objects, like we usually try to go for.
Yeah. Except that that's how it works in Neverwinter.
Yeah, but it's two related detail objects because it needs both a target or a door and a well, actually, in Neverwinter it is literally two door objects.
Yeah.
That are linked.
You
Both of them
interact
need to
with
be
one, it sends you to
independently
the other.
placeable.
Yeah.
Well, as an example of the way it's done in Star Trek Online official maps, we have Kronos. As some people know, all of the First City and the Kronos shipyard are actually a single map, which is why there used to be that old bug where beaming down to First City would sometimes dump you in the shipyard and vice versa. The Klingon Academy is actually something that's actually a truly separate map, but when you go to the transporter in Kronos and tell it to beam you to the shipyard, it's actually relocating you to a different part of the map. DS9 does something similar when you use the turbo lift to go to the upper floor.
Oh, yeah. Another good example is the Federation tutorial, which like the first 5 parts of that mission are all on the same map, which we found out when we took it into demo record one time.
Yeah, and they use them all over the place. So, I mean, I don't think it's so much a problem of the engine doing it. It's just a matter of teaching our Foundry how to do it. And obviously they did something with Neverwinter.
But anyway, we will have to wait and see, and probably wait a while to see how that all turns out.
Yeah, basically all they've said is that time has been scheduled. And I should also remind you that schedules are not set in stone. If something more important takes longer, it can still get bumped off the schedule.
Absolutely.
So no, this is not
or
a
you know,
promise,
if they come up with things that they might think are more of a priority, like one of the last times that we know for sure that Foundry time was scheduled, Taco used it to finish Club 47 on ESD.
Yeah, so I mean,
which he was upfront about, and I think we were all very understanding.
Yeah, and he did eventually get Earth Space Dock into the Foundry.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's what I was going to say. Is that part of the reason why he hadn't added ESD to the Foundry yet is that it wasn't finished.
Yes. Which, speaking of ESD, I should make another comment in reference to our previous episode. We were talking about whether you could sort of convert the sickbay there into a starship sickbay, and Sir Boulevard pointed something out to me. He said he had tried it, but there's ambient noise in ESD. All of the station stuff talking over the intercom, which doesn't really fit a starship. So there's that issue. Ambient noise built into the maps has been slightly annoying for us in the past, because we have, like, where you hear wind in the grass or something, and you're trying to build a starship interior on an exterior map.
What backdrop was he experimenting with?
I don't know if it's tied to the backdrop.
Yeah, it may not be. It may just be a
true,
fast
yeah.
For
effect of
new
the map.
ESD. I think it's just, because on space maps, I know we can set the ambient noise.
What is it? The Zero interior has got a weird baked-in asset that basically sets the music to that suspenseful running music. So no matter what you use that on that map, it'll always be that music that plays.
That's funny. Primer says that Club 47, if you put the new ESD map in the Foundry, Club 47 has the dance music. Volumized sky files and audio files, he says. So there is that consideration. All right, let's move on. Dragoon, why don't you do your mission review?
Okay, well, I got to play part 3 of the Photonomy series, and I kind of know the name of the mission or the part name, but I'm not confident in my ability to recite it.
We use some Latin here and there, so that's probably where
Yeah.
it comes from. My title was in English, so.
Did you get to pick your own titles, or did you have it all set up by?
Yeah, no, we picked our own titles by and large. It was funny when I picked mine. I used that poem where it's I paraphrasing. Don't go gentle into that good night, rage at the dying of the light, and I used dying of the light. And Captain P.F. Dennis says, when I told him I was picking that one, he said, "Oh, thank God! I was hoping somebody would pick that."
Which, of course, light being a play on words.
Yeah.
So yes. So going through this one, picks up where the last one left off, where you've got to now have a new means of tracking these probes after the kind of the red herring that part 2 kind of sent you through. So you go down, or you track down one of the probes, and you manage to disarm it and discover a erosion warp trail leading away. You can identify its erosion. You can't really tell that much about it. So you set out to go track down some erosion, which you find. And of course, they're less than cooperative. So you do battle with them. But while they're trying to take you down, some Romulan ships show up and give you a hand. Now, you assume that these are Romulan Republic, because they're the good Romulans, right? Only to find out they're actually Tal Shiar ships that have come to reclaim your Tal Shiar prisoner that's been helping you with the track down these probes. Now, it looks like it's all set up that it looks like they managed to beam her aboard, and so they've taken her, and they're about ready to leave, and this Romulan agent comes on and is like, "Oh no, I just needed to grab some replicator files. You can beam me back now." And everyone is flabbergasted, including the Tal Shiar captain, who is on this mission to recover her. So you beam her back. I get, which I will admit I did not see coming. So after that, you more or less part ways. And the Hirogen, who are still kind of grumpy, drop the hint that of a reference to Voyager. They comment that the Hirogen signature is something that hasn't been used in quite a while, and they drop a hint about the a Hirogen ship that had been taken over by holograms, which is a reference to an episode of Voyager. And all of a sudden, it kind of starts to click. Like, now this suddenly makes sense. So it's now looking like the probes were set up as a way to eradicate Earth, the biological life forms. They've been outfitted with a small vials of Thalaron radiation. Although I don't know you can stick Thalaron radiation in a vial, but anyway.
Well, in Nemesis, one of the Romulans carried around a Thalaron grenade.
Well, it was a Thalaron generator, just a mini one.
Well,
it was like a mini version of the same thing on.
It was something small enough that she could fit it inside her purse. So
Yeah, it was like a large talisman size.
We don't. It's hard to say how it works exactly. So I mean, you assume there's some sort of material there that it, I don't know, charges up or something.
Yeah, I mean, radiation is a form of. Although Star Trek is really loose with the concept of radiation. Is typically an EM radiation.
It's energy emitted by something.
Yeah,
exactly.
But either way, moving on.
Yeah.
So you've now got this clue, and you finally have an idea of who might be behind this and how it connects back to all of the unrest on the with the photonics, and you all during this whole time you've got they're kind of getting updates on the news. Which, by the way, how in the world is it that my sensors can be blocked, but I can still get regular news updates? This has happened a couple of times now.
Priorities.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between comm traffic and sensors, I guess.
I think they both operate in subspace. But anyway, I'm just going to poke fun at your inconsistencies. Because I can.
What? Inconsistencies in Star Trek?
So anyway, during this whole time, the situation has been getting worse, obviously, as it's been doing since this all started. And it's gotten to the point where the President OK has announced that he is stepping down and that a special election will occur to replace him. And of course, one of the candidates to step up is the anti-photonic movement leader. And so far, nobody else has bothered to step up. And of course, this just makes all the photonics even angrier, since this was all got them all mad in the first place. But unfortunately, while this is all going on, and before you can really start to track down the this stolen Hirogen ship full of photonics, you have to. A situation develops on Tellar Prime of a group of photonics that is basically taken hostages, and is threatening to overload a power plant, antimatter power plant. So you warp over to Tellar Prime and beam down, and you're given an option to initially negotiate with these photonics. So you talk to them a bit, and then you're given a choice of either to send in an assault team or try and negotiate again. I personally chose to send in the assault team, and
Of course
so
you did.
I'm sorry.
You Federation types. You talk peace, but you prepare for war.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with these guys anymore.
Well, every time I hear someone talk about send in someone to negotiate, I automatically flash back to that scene from The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's totally how mine went down.
That's Dragoon's negotiating tactic.
And I totally said, does anyone else want to negotiate at the end? Because that's what happened. No, so you go in, and at this point, your Romulan Tal Shiar prisoner is actually really cooperative. So far, she's like my favorite character from this whole thing. Is it weird that the most likable person in this entire mission, this entire series, is a Tal Shiar agent?
No, because we wrote her that way.
Well, to be honest, a lot of the Tal Shiar are actually very, I guess you could say, sociable people. They have interesting motives, but they are actually kind of person who's a smooth talker, and unless you really want to make them do something they don't want to do, they're easy to get along with.
Yeah, I don't know. The classic Tal Shiar.
It's always that thing about, your rank and file people. They're just normal people doing a job. And it's usually the people at the top that are evil.
I don't know. I mean, at least in the TNG, they made it seem like the Tal Shiar was very much a rule by fear kind of organization. So I mean, yeah, it wasn't great to be okay. So I'm getting sidetracked. All right, so I rated the this power plant, and that was an impressive power plant build. I mean, we're talking a very elaborate building, all custom, with interiors, and you were on multiple levels, and like catwalks and crossing through and around. I mean, so we are not talking a light build here. I mean, this was definitely this showcase piece of this episode.
You're into Johnny Snowball's mission, right? That's the author.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, that's what he actually did 2 missions for us, and he is a master map builder. Absolutely.
So you finally storm the complex, and one of the hostages ends up getting killed, just because apparently my other security team is incompetent. Like, we can't take them, sir. Oh, fine, I'll go do it. So you take them down. He's kind of all pouty, and and that's more or less where the mission ends. Obviously, we'll probably find out more about this ship of holograms and how they tie in. Because I mean, one of the points was brought up, and I'm kind of glad that this point was brought up, is that all of this sudden and very sudden unrest is a little odd and out of place, and it's kind of been what's been bothering me up till now. Is like, how do you? I mean, they're holograms. They're not that badly programmed. That they're just like flip of a switch, ready to riot.
Computer errors.
So I'm kind of curious to see, I mean, how this ties in. I mean, overall, I would say like top-notch map building. I mean, obviously the power plant was kind of the key one. I want to say that was the only ground map. I think most of the rest of your running around was in space, and they had some nice maps with space. I don't want to like knock them or anything, but yeah, it was definitely this power plant was definitely the kind of meant as the showcase piece.
And sometimes we do that in missions. We sort of, do one big giant custom build and then have that be sort of just, like you said, the showcase.
Yeah, and that's the way to.
Sometimes
that's the way to do it, unless
but
you want your mission to take years to make.
True. Yeah. Like yours, for instance.
Yeah, I have to say that I kind of dread the idea of trying to make a mission where I do multiple custom interiors, because when I did the Betarana incident, I did 2 very elaborate custom maps and no other map work whatsoever.
Yeah, except that I keep looking at the non-custom maps and thinking they're not good enough.
Well, I mean, there's always the option of
my maps, not Johnny
progressing.
Snowball's maps.
Yeah. I mean, because, well, the mission I did, Darkness Between the Stars, I did not actually do any full custom maps for that. I just carefully chose assets and redressed existing maps. Granted, one of them was completely, utterly unrecognizable after I was done with it, but, well, that was kind of the point.
So yeah, overall, I had a much easier time with this one, mostly because other than dealing with a few people, you were a little further away from the drama this time. Plus, the plot was advancing, which is something that Part 2 really didn't do. I mean, but at the beginning and end of Part 2s, you're more or less in the same scenario. So here is kind of like a nice relief to finally get things moving. It's like, okay, we know something new about the probes. Something advanced in the plot with the photonics. And so, I mean, that was definitely very nice. And I will be continuing
with Part 4.
With Part 4 next week.
Awesome. Well, I will say, part of the way we structured it is it's almost like a Tom Clancy novel, which every Tom Clancy novel inevitably starts with a bunch of unrelated events. And then by the time you get to the end of the novel, they have all interconnected.
Yeah, at the end of the novel, you're like, okay, this is basically just a giant spider web, not independent things.
Yeah, and you finally got to the middle of it.
I don't want to say. I mean, I don't think the lack of interconnectedness in the beginning really bothered me, because I kind of expected that, and I was kind of been looking forward to seeing how the two connect to each other. But it's something I always expected to happen, so it didn't really bother me. And I think it was just that when in Part 2 you start out thinking you found a way to find the probes, which ends up being a red herring. It doesn't work, and so you end up not having any real new information about the probes, or who made them by the end of the mission. So you're still kind of back where you started. And you've also got the situation with the photonics, that while things happen and things are progressively getting worse, they're not really, there's no change to what the situation is.
In situations like this, I like to recite I think it was Thomas Edison who said it, is that I have not failed. I have simply eliminated one more incorrect possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. That for me is what stood out as big difference between Parts 2 and Part 3. Because in Part 3,
if I remember right, the original quote was in relation to how it took him something like 1,000 different experiments to come up with a working light bulb prototype.
Well, it's difficult to plot out a 6-part mission and make sure that every part advances the plot, make sure that every part is engaging and interesting, and that every part has the basic story structures of rising action, climax, falling action, that sort of thing. It's very hard to do with
Yeah.
that many parts. I mean, I struggled to do it with 5, and then here we're doing it with 6. I've never done a 5-parter since by myself, so.
I don't know, maybe it's just kind of the part 2 curse. Because it seems like Purity had the same issue.
Well, Purity was because we added part 2 later. We actually ended up with too many authors and not enough missions to go around. So we added part 2 after we'd written everything else, and it ended up being this kind of weird interlude sort of a thing that I don't think worked very well. And, you know, despite Baz's best efforts, I don't think worked all that well.
Which, I mean, he had some impressive map work going on there.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
elaborate
he really did,
buildings.
He really did a great job on a lot of it, but it's just the episode as a whole didn't necessarily work as well as we might have hoped.
Well, I'm curious. I mean, after you get these series is done, do you guys ever go like step back and try and figure out, okay, this is what worked, this is what didn't, this is what we'll do better next time?
You know, not specifically, but we've had enough conversations over the year. I guess it's almost been 2 years since we did Purity, because I think we had that. That must have been like October 2013, I think, is when we put that out there. And this next one, of course, Christmas time 2015. So we had a lot of time to, you know, kind of analyze and just in conversations that we always had, think about what we had done and what we could do better.
I know. It's funny. I'm thinking about 6-part arts and how I would try and break them down. And I think 6 parts is really hard. Because you have to put your climax in 5 so that you can write into part 6 with a conclusion. But that means that you've got 4 other parts that you've got to spread out the rising action over. I mean, if you
or do you put the climax in part 6?
No, no. I mean, that would almost be too late in the story.
Depends on where in part 6.
Yeah, I mean, but that means you have to stretch out your rising action over 3 episodes, even if you fully dedicate the first episode to the inciting incident.
Well, one thing that I've pondered is faking a climax just to throw people off guard, and then going back for the real climax later. Because that was one of the things that caught my attention about the scripting of the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, is that about halfway through the movie, you get to something that's almost kind of sort of like the climax of the action, except that it's halfway through the movie, and thus it's not really the climax of anything.
That's true.
A good example of that is Aliens. You know, they're on the planet, and the power plant is going to explode, and she thinks she's about to die. The alien queen is coming right at her, and her escape ship is nowhere to be seen. And you think maybe she's going to die, and then it shows up. They get off the planet. The music, you know, goes with the ticking. You know, there's a ticking clock, and then you see the explosion, and you think maybe that's the climax, and then a few minutes later, oh no, the alien hitched a ride, and she's back on the ship, and we have to fight her.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, there's that.
That was a very good example of dark humor, just simply because of the whole. It had a kind of like a comedic timing to it, the way they put that scene together.
Fooled you.
Yeah, you see the alien stabs the android through the chest and starts coming down from the ship and says, "Here's Johnny." Anyway, you know, these story structures that we talk about are sort of guidelines. You know, they're definitely not rules, hard and fast rules. And there's lots of different ways to structure a story.
And I mean, it's
not
still
just
something
the classic,
that's debated
you know,
to this day.
Single mountain kind of a thing. Oh yeah, take any creative writing class, and you'll have a good debate about that.
And then add to that the fact that we're trying to stretch what was initially modeled as a single story arc into multiple parts, I mean, it gets trickier. I mean,
Yeah.
then you can throw it out to the nth degree and have you talk about how it relates to like the story of a TV show over an entire series where you're dealing with like between 15 and 25 parts.
Yeah, well, one thing that's completely unfathomable to me is for me to do something like what J. Michael Straczynski did with the Babylon 5. Because, as has been referenced several times, when he started plotting the first episode of Babylon 5, before he did that, he came up with a very, very broad strokes, mind you, but broad strokes idea of what he wanted to do for 3 television series. Like full series, the length of the original Babylon 5 series. So he had that big broad strokes vision of where he wanted to go, and then he started breaking that down into seasons and then episodes. And eventually then he decided what to put in the first episode.
And that's essentially the same process we used. We kind of came up with an overall story, and then Captain P.F. Dennis did most of this. Break it down into its individual parts, and then break it down into sort of like individual acts, you might say. And at that point, you had like a 4 or 5 paragraph story treatment, I think you would call it if we were in Hollywood. And that's what was given to each author. Sometimes even with some dialogue written in. And then it was essentially, up to us to do the writing and the map building.
So did you guys have too much trouble like coordinating characters and stuff? Especially ones that appear in multiple parts?
Not too much. I had kind of waited, because mine was the last episode, so I had kind of waited for quite a while until I, most of the rest of them were playable, so I could play it and get a sense of character voices and that sort of thing. And another thing we did was, this is something that I suggested on Purity, which is, essentially sort of create a cast for your mission. Take your characters and say, if I was doing this as a TV show or a movie, what actors would I get to play this part? And that kind of helps you get the voice as well. And it helps multiple people be able to write that same voice.
Okay.
Anyway, you talk about voice in the sort of abstract sense, because of course we're not writing for speech. Nobody's saying these lines; people are reading them. But you definitely, which I think sometimes makes it harder to differentiate one voice from another when it's in text form. But obviously, great writers have been doing that throughout history, and hopefully we did too.
Yeah, there's a level of nuance that you just cannot get with writing that you will with voice, because simply of the way people can stress individual words.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do that with writing.
Very much so.
And with writing, I mean, even if you write with a certain voice on your end, there's no way that you can guarantee that the receiving it or the viewer will interpret it the same way.
Yeah, a lot of the time I've found that people would imagine things that I'd written completely differently than the way I imagined them.
And if you'll bear with me for a moment, I can tell you, hopefully if I can find the right thing, I can tell you who we cast as essentially our main new character, which is the Tal Shiar operative Darvia, or former Tal Shiar. Talk amongst yourselves. Another thing we did was create backstories for everybody.
Backstories are awesome because it gives you an idea as to where the character's going to go that you can just simply, you guys could say, look at and it's just like, okay, this is where we're going. Even if you don't necessarily have it planned, it gives you a perspective on it.
Okay, well, we have a picture. We don't have a name anymore, and I've forgotten who that is. That's all right. So anyway, that's one thing that you can do. I've done it for my own missions. Originally, my very first mission had an admiral who's given all your orders, and I sort of thought to myself, if I was doing this as a movie, I'd get Billy D. Williams to play that part because he'd be awesome. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Dragoon has an awesome map that I would like him to show off.
All right, well, it's going to take me a sec to load up, so
yeah,
if you want to
go
talk
ahead
about
and
something else.
go into the Foundry. As everybody probably knows, we've been moving along with our Alliance Exploration Initiative project. I have been doing a poll for the name of our space station. And let's see. The first round didn't necessarily have a clear winner. We had 2 name suggestions that were at 4 votes and a bunch that were at 3. So I took all those and I eliminated the rest and I put up the final poll. If anybody hasn't voted for it, there is a thread on the forums for that. And I'll keep that open for a little while longer. And then we will hopefully have a clear winner.
Do we get to vote?
Yeah, go ahead. Everyone's on the honor system to vote once.
In the last one, so I'm guessing we get to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing we're doing is we settled on a list of station personnel that we're going to have assigned to this station. We had a good long talk about who should be there and who we wanted to define for people if they wanted to use them. And, I wanted to make sure that we kept it to 10 or less people because anything outside of that, we wanted people to be free to create on their own. So let's see. We decided on we need a station commander. And I kind of envisioned this as somebody who also is in charge of the overall exploration efforts, as well as being the station commander. And we have the command crew for the station, which we have Chief Medical Officer, Chief of Station Operations, like Chief O'Brien, a Communications Officer, which would be good. That's, the person who's coordinating with all of these ships that are out there. Be a person you might be talking to a lot. A Chief of Security for the station, and a Strategic Operations Officer. Part of exploration is, you might run into hostile races and things like that. You're going to need somebody who is in charge of knowing where everybody is and knowing the overall strategic situation in case there's a crisis. And for the remaining 4, we have some exploration contacts, some experts that people can go to for briefings or, get advice on various aspects of exploration. So we'll have an astrophysicist, an anthropologist, a planetary ecologist, and a first contact specialist. So for all these positions, we are taking nominations, and we also have a thread for that. And once we get nominations, we will do a vote for each of these positions. So all this is kind of ways to include the Foundry community in all of this, so that I'm not just deciding everything, or us here on the show aren't just deciding everything. So we've had quite a number of good nominations so far, and we're still taking them.
Oh, yeah. Lots of interesting ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually kind of halfway thinking about putting in Teton as a resident archaeologist, but she's kind of my Foundry character, even though I've actually used her as a mission contact in 2 of my missions.
I don't know. In
So
my case, all the characters I've created are like super low level people on the player ship, so I don't think any of them are high enough ranked to hold any position on this station.
well, maybe time for one of them to get a promotion.
I think Sir Boulevard's already promoted one of them.
He,
I don't want to
of course,
promote
has
him too
taken
quickly.
over a whole ton of your characters. But anyway,
Whatever, it's cool.
It's open for anyone to nominate. There's several different types of characters that I want people to nominate, which is they could be from characters from somebody's Foundry mission that they've created. They could be new characters that you create just for this, and you know, could be player characters. That was a fourth one, and the other one is minor cryptic NPCs that have disappeared due to updates. So like people that used to be on Memory Alpha, say.
Actually, the fun thing about those is that we have pre-made costumes in the Foundry for some of them.
Mm-hmm. Some of them.
I say
Like
we grab one
like-
of those Ferengi as like entrepreneurs that have come to the station to.
In Darkness Between the Stars, I actually used as a dialogue contact the pre-made costume of one of the NPCs on Memory Alpha. You don't actually go to Memory Alpha, but you talk to a guy who is stationed on Memory Alpha.
We've had a couple nominations from Memory Alpha so far. Our first one is Zara Dren, and then the other one was Jenna Romine. So once we get a good number of nominations there, I will start the voting process.
Is there any sort of like diplomatic presence on the station?
Yeah, there would have to be.
We should nominate our Packlet ambassador.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got a first contact specialist, which I've envisioned as somebody from like one of the diplomatic services would be that. What do we call her? Ambassador Dennis.
Yes, that's right.
After Captain P.F. Dennis, of course. from Make Diplomacy Go. Yes. Okay. I'm gonna do that. Well, yeah.
We will nominate her.
Yeah. Give me a screenshot. We'll put her in there.
Okay, I'll go pull her up her file later.
Very nice. All right. So you have loaded up the Foundry.
Yep.
And show us your map here.
So one of the this actually started as kind of I was just playing around, and I was kind of trying to make a see if you could make something kind of like Wrath of Kanish for a bridge, and mostly just because I was curious if it could be done, and then it kind of developed into a more modern version, and then I realized, wow, this is pretty awesome, and I should totally use it in one of my missions. So yes, this is a completely custom bridge I did up. Fortunately, I built it in the wrong mission, which is why I had to load it up into, or do it up as a XML spreadsheet,
so that
I could port it over.
The actual mission.
And I've thought about it and decided, you know what? I mean, there's no reason this particular bridge can't work for multiple ships. So I then went on and went ahead and shared the link to the spreadsheet so that anyone can create.
And we will put that link in our show notes as well.
So go ahead and include it in the chat here for anyone that's interested.
It's really a good looking thing, and you're right. It is very reminiscent of the original circular bridges that we had in TOS era.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't having much success doing TOS because we've got so few assets that work well for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the assets are also available reskinned with a more modern LCARS interface. So it's kind of set up. Obviously, it's got the Odyssey for the rear MSD because it was either this or the Defiant, and I figured more starships look like an Odyssey than they do a Defiant.
Yeah, you're definitely a bit limited on that score.
I got a turbolift, and then the nice thing is this door over here actually goes to nothing whatsoever. So the idea is that you could,
when you build it, you can make it go somewhere.
So yeah, you can include it as a go after a ready room or maybe a back access hallway. This is actually how they're going to get to the bridge because they're not going to take the turbolift in my mission. So
Well,
I'm probably going to build out.
Well, one thing that I thought was a good idea and did when I did the Betarana incident was to put doors as decorations just to make it feel larger than it is. Because, when you have a set with no doors, it just kind of sort of feels like you're in a box and not part of something larger.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean, that's
definitely something that I always do. And then if you reuse the map somewhere, you can always replace that with a door that opens and have it go somewhere.
I can't remember whether in the version, whether I swapped this out for a non-working door or not. I probably didn't, but I know some people like to use ready rooms or whatnot, but it's certainly a new option, and it kind of uses some of the more newer holographic displays.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. So, okay. If anybody wants to use it, you're welcome to it.
One of the things I find the most difficult is making interesting or, at least realistic looking ceilings. So show us the ceiling.
Oh, sure. It's primarily just a metal floor with the circular building block platform, and then the big extra large ceiling light.
Excellent. Because at least gives it something slightly interesting and textured and that sort of thing.
If I really wanted to go fancy, I could have probably added in more, like maybe like the very bottoms of like some building block walls to run from the center into each of those pillars. That would have broken up the ceiling even further.
I can see that. That'd be interesting. Yeah.
As it stands, this is about like either 96 or 98 assets, which actually isn't too bad for a
for a room like
this size.
For a sky castle.
Yeah, so I mean, it's only using up 1/5 of the asset limit, so there's enough space that you can add on extra, like do a conference room or.
Now I know you had an inquiry on Twitter when you were posting screenshots of this, of whether you could remove the view screen asset and have it be essentially a window to the outside so you could change backdrops and that sort of thing.
So the answer is yes, you could. You'd have to get rid of this wall, because I mean, this is a screen in front of a wall, just like one of those ship walls. And
you can see the top of it there.
Yeah. So you would have to get rid of that wall too, which means you'd have to swap out something to replace this top portion of the screen. You'd also probably want some kind of frame for it, so it doesn't just feel like a hole. I suppose you could put in glass like the Origin Brit has. Trying to see what it looks like on the outside. The downside is that you've got the carpets that kind of extend out. All right, so there's the edge. There. Nope, I went too far. Okay, so this is the wall on the opposite side of the view screen. And as you can see, the carpet extends out somewhat. Now, I am pretty sure I am not using the smallest iteration of carpet here. I think there's one smaller that's really tiny. So you would have to swap out this for a couple of smaller iterations, and adjust the rubber flooring in the center so it's not sticking out into the thing. But I mean, beyond that, I think it's totally doable. Like I said, it wouldn't be the easiest thing. It requires some work to get it just right.
But definitely doable.
Yeah.
I did something like this a long time ago, and it doesn't look near as good as yours. But what I did is I essentially had a blank wall there, and I told everybody that the view screen was down for maintenance.
You know,
it would be finished on Tuesday.
The really ironic thing is that where I plan to use this in my mission, there is totally a broken moon with an orange background, so I can totally use this background, and it totally works.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, okay,
that's
a hilarious one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the climax of part 3 takes place in basically this base that's built into a moon that's being swallowed up by a gas giant. So the moon itself has fallen in below the gas cloud layers and is breaking up, and so there's this long stream of pieces of the broken moon, and then the base is like built into that. So
Very cool.
yeah, that's totally what my space map looks like. Minus that you can't really see stars.
Awesome. So we had a question from the chat room about what, we're talking about characters and posting them for other people to use. And, what is the best way to do that? And the best way to do that is essentially take screenshots of the sliders and then see if you can crop it around to just the sliders and put those on the same image right next to each other. That seems to be the best way, so that people just have to look at one thing and they see, the body shape and the upper uniform, lower uniform, and face stuff, and all those sliders. So that seems to be the best way, so that you can kind of get it all in one image.
Yeah, if you do it just right, it actually isn't all that large of an image.
No.
You just have to make it so that it's just the sliders that you're pasting into those.
The downside to that is that you kind of need some kind of image editing program to stitch them together. And I know not everyone's going to have access to something like that.
Oh,
well, there are free ones out there.
If you have a Windows computer, you have an image editing program that is adequate for such a task.
Yes. True. I guess Paint.
You can do it with Paint.
Yeah, I use MS Paint personally.
You can do it with GIMP is the other free one. Which I don't particularly like. I can't get my head around a lot of the controls, but it does work. I mean, if you take the time to learn it.
Like cheap Photoshop.
Yeah, pretty much.
I was thinking about it. I would love to come up with a numerical way of conveying slider values so that somebody could dump it into a... I wonder if I could come up with a queue of some kind that loads.
I don't know.
I know that loads images of like in 10% increments or something.
So the other thing is, we were talking earlier about, what feature could they possibly be adding to the Foundry? Well, one thing that we'd love to have back is the costume import-export.
That's true.
Would be nice.
That would make collaborative projects like this so much easier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big problem with that was that it had literally no error checking whatsoever. So it would, if there was anything wrong with it, you'd just end up with either corrupted costumes sitting in your projects, or it would crash the editor or stuff like that.
Or in some cases, do things that were never meant to be possible, like reskinning ground NPCs as starships.
Yeah, I've got a few of those bugged NPCs, imported NPCs that I still hang on to because I can do some really weird things with them. But they also crash my editor every time I exit to this day.
Yes, they do.
I never had that problem.
Well, if they could fix those crashes.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a certain kind of NPC if you imported it. And because it would also let you try and import all of the stock NPCs into the and a lot of assets are not available.
Yeah, that was part of the problem. But a lot of those are available now.
I took saved costumes of, let's see here, Tholian, Breen, and Jim Hadar vessels that were like player created and saved ship costumes, and used those.
Well, anyway, fantastic bridge map, and let's switch gears here again and go kind of put the final touches on our Starbase interior map for the exploration project. This is another resource that we're going to provide for Anyone who's going to do a mission for the exploration project, you can use it or not at your discretion. Or you can show other parts of the station before you head out to explore the unknown, which is what I'm going to do.
Were we still going to try and do some sort of introductory mission?
I think so. Once we get our list of characters, we'll use this interior that we're building and populate it and have a mission where you can go around and talk to people and they'll tell you who they are and what they do there and a little bit about the project itself and at the end, obviously where you can and how to find more missions. Which should be fairly easy because we're going to pick an out-of-the-way place like the Archer system is our sort of current running favorite, which I believe has nothing in the top 3 yet. So our missions will be probably about exclusively populating that top 3.
Yeah, it's far enough out of the way that most normal people aren't going to want to use it.
Mm-hmm. And the introductory mission is something that we'll include in like promotional materials, posters and forum signatures and that sort of thing, as a way to get people out to that system. And then they'll be able to see the rest of them there. And of course, you obviously will be able to find them in the normal search engine.
I know. I mean, I would still like the introductory mission to be a story-driven mission, not just talk around people. But at the same time, I want to focus it more on the station than, say, the exploration. So maybe helping getting the
origin
station
story
set up.
of the station.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you were making some tweaks before we started. What have you done?
Mostly get the right Y values. Just going back and forth and trying to get values that okay, because I mean it's no fun to sit there and watch me fidget with Y values until
Absolutely.
All right, so all of our consoles are nice and sitting on the floor now, not floating in the air. Got my hologram I was trying to do working there. Also got my flags from the 3 factions going. Although our selection for flags is kind of limited. So I think we got like a Romulan civilian, the House of Martok, and if I look at it, the Starfleet Applied Sciences logo.
That still looks pretty good, though.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sells the 3 factions and the fact that this is a shared alliance, and so we got the whole multiple stations from different factions here. Doors are not Hobbit doors anymore. Got this down at the right. I might swap this out for a turbo lift. I think that makes more sense for usability. Obviously, it wasn't too much to do with the cargo bay.
No, I didn't think that needed a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
It's where you can go if you need, like, specialized equipment loaded on your ship. They can have it there, and you can go inspect it before you beam it over. That sort of thing.
Yep. Okay, so moving up this way. Let me just forgot.
Plus, we don't want to do anything to obscure that neat mesh floor there.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got this door down here, which is going to turn into our office. I put down some carpet, but otherwise I haven't really done anything with it.
I think that's our next task once you've done showing us around here.
Another task we have is we need to build a transporter pad in here so that players have a place to beam down to.
Yeah. Well, I know some various techniques for doing that.
And lastly, I've been fidgeting with the lounge. So it's starting to get there. See, I got our door framed in. And I've been kind of messing with things. I don't know if I've got everything perfect yet. But I kind of wanted this used to be another room, and then they kind of redressed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be totally hilarious to have one of the Ferengi from Memory Alpha here running bar. Maybe have the other two there working as bartenders or something.
There you go.
We have like a little flavor text where they
They complain about how they used to be at Memory Alpha or something like that.
You complain about how their previous job was more profitable.
There you go.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, looking real good.
I might do something with the ceiling, kind of have this big block run all the way around, but I don't want to obscure the window.
That window is definitely something we want to keep with us. For Ranger Ryu in the chat room and anyone else who didn't see the first part, this is the Sierra Outpost 2 map, which was used in one of the old Romulan Arc missions, which is no longer in game.
It was a incredibly forgettable mission where you go over to a Federation starbase to pick up a. No, I'm sorry, that's not right. This is the one where you come to
You
this base to
disarm
pick
some
up the
bombs,
mines.
yeah.
Yeah, you have to pick up the mines.
Yeah.
And the cranky Romulan scientist. Or not a cranky Vulcan scientist.
Vulcan.
Yeah.
The Romulans are the ones who are shooting at you while you try to retrieve the mine.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically go to have these special mines that can only detect Federation hulls and attack anything else.
They have a chemistry sensor in them that would not detonate if it detected that the object near it was made out of Federation hull materials, which is a plot point that comes up later in the mission because you have to fly around and blow up asteroids that have certain mineral compositions because the scientist has determined that these asteroids would confuse the mind. Blowing up those asteroids was actually one of the most annoying tasks I've seen in any of the story missions, simply because of the fact that automatic weapons lock doesn't work and you have to manually target the things, and you can't tab target them for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot about the old Romulan arc that was very tedious.
Yes. All right, Dragoon, why don't we work on our office here?
Okay.
So what do we need for an office? We need a desk and a chair, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I was going to do something real quick. I just love solid floors.
Mm-hmm. I should mention that this is sort of planned to be kind of like a generic office where you could meet a mission contact, any contact you choose.
Yeah, so it's a general purpose office.
Yes. So you're shopping for carpet.
Yep, so I was going to... Can't see the floor with...
I see where you're going with this.
Yep. All right, so this is at 0, so this has to be at 0.001. Can't do that because I've got Snap to Grid on.
Good old Snap to Grid.
It's handy at some times and not at others.
Yep.
It can be one of the greatest sources of frustration with map building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's also really handy at times.
Yes, it definitely is.
Okay, so you were saying something about a desk.
It only makes sense. Maybe one of the ESD desks.
We got Admiral Quinn's desk, which is a little more the glass and wood, and then we've got the other ESD desks, which are more have consoles in them and stuff like that. We also got a TOS desk. I could have sworn we have more, but maybe they were labeled as tables.
So
Could
don't
be.
the TOS desks make beeping noises?
do
I
not
don't
know.
ever actually use them in anything, so
I kind of do like that TOS desk, the one at the bottom there.
I actually used some of the TOS assets when I did Beta Station, so simply because of the way they have those bright colored
okay. So
geometric shaped buttons, because
this is
they
the one
look
I'm thinking
kind of
of.
sort of like Tholian stuff.
It's wood and a little odd shaped, but
Yeah, we could try that one.
we got a couple of shapes, all odd shaped. Got this super long conference table one. Okay, well, let's try this one. Though while I'm thinking about it, something we've got to take care of is this door back here.
Yes, need to obscure that with a wall or something.
Well, I thought it was, can't remember, it was someone had suggested a fish tank.
Yeah.
I thought that would be really cool looking.
As long as it doesn't take up too much room. But you only need half this fish tank.
Yeah.
In this case. Because that one I know is a circular one, which has kind of two sides to it.
All right. Some chairs for this. We're just going to go with the ESG chairs, so
Yeah.
Admiral Quinn along with
Those are kind of the best chairs we've got.
yeah. Plus the task chairs can be sittable.
True.
My carpet back. All right, let's fire this up and see what happens. So have you been working on anything in the Foundry lately, Dragoon?
No, I haven't been able to get in there. I've been doing a lot in the rest of the game, though. Mainly trying to build up as many lockbox keys as I can without spending any money.
Step back a bit, but I'm liking this. Use a little bit more paraphernalia, but maybe or one of the shelf set with the starships.
Yeah, there you go. Otherwise, that looks like a nice little kind of a conference room that anybody could use.
Yeah, that fish tank like almost fits perfectly within that door frame.
Yeah. You can move it back a little bit, but otherwise
Yeah.
it looks real good.
Yeah, lamp of some kind.
Yeah.
Use a couple of lamps in the corner.
There you go. I really like what the backdrop we chose did for the lighting. Created some very interesting sort of lighting shapes.
Yeah, we're using the Interior Sky Science Facility 01.
Is that what it was?
Yep. Our choice for... All right, so I'm going to go with the... Okay, so these guys will do. Stick them right there. I know in my Admiral's office in my Midas build, I had a bunch of, or a side table with a bunch of liquor bottles.
It's the kind of thing you'd find in an admiral's office.
Not going to be...
I wonder if that might be too big. You don't want to completely clutter the whole thing up.
could be a little smaller, although it doesn't have anything on it.
So what about you, Dragoon? Have you been able to move the Foundry much lately?
Showed you what I've been working on.
Obviously, yeah.
That's mostly been it. I've also taken on a side project of trying to make a Manticore Master Systems display.
Oh, yeah. Mark, I know you said you were doing something fun earlier. You were helping somebody make a video. Is that right?
Well, that wasn't really Foundry related. He was doing. You may have noticed that there was a guy on the forum who was doing a Let's Play sort of thing of the Romulan story missions for the Romulan Republic, and I did like a team play for one of those.
Great. Being an official mission doesn't have the same team play bug where you get sent to different instances and map changes, I hope.
Never saw that. Now the specific mission we were doing had different sorts of bugs that you don't see in Foundry.
Sure.
Well, okay, in theory you could see them in the Foundry. Now that I think about it, but you know the old kill NPCs before you've triggered that objective bug. For whatever reason, it just happens to have that particular one really bad because one of the objectives is to go to a certain room and then kill the NPCs inside of it as separate objectives. But as one of those little things that players do but devs don't think about is the enemies for this particular objective are literally standing right inside the room so that you can kill them while standing outside the door. And thus kill them before you trigger the objective to kill them.
All right.
I don't know if the plants are necessary, Dragoon.
I think it might be too much.
Yeah. The rest of it looks good, I think.
Okay. Do we want to move on to another section?
Yeah. Well, I think we pretty much only have one thing left, which is the transporter.
The transporter.
Pad. Yeah. Because I'm pretty happy with the rest of it.
All right, so we can't just use the transporter room asset, so we kind of got to build our own.
Yeah.
All right.
So the simple way I've done it in the past is you essentially put down one of the disk, the building block platform disks, and then you use
the round one, or do you want to use the building block one?
The building block one. One of the ones that looks like a metal. 03, I think.
Or what we could do is we could do both. So it's like a step up.
Yeah.
That's the hang on, I'm going to do this properly.
Now, what I've been using is the tops of tables, but there's a new asset which is good, which is the mannequin stand from ESD.
Okay.
Yeah, well, when I made the Tholian transporter pad for the Beta Rana thing, I actually used mostly Klingon assets for it, and just arranged them in a way that you don't normally see Klingon assets used.
I'm going to be totally off. There was something else I can remember seeing that was really cool, and that was the floor light. ESD recessed
Yeah,
floor.
that's
And
right.
I want to say, yeah, if you use the extra large one, it is just
Big enough, yeah.
big enough to sit right in the mannequin stand.
Do both, yeah.
Snap to grid to line these up.
Obviously, we'll have to play with the Y values to get exactly how we want it.
Yeah. So usually they have the rings or the smaller circles around it, and then something in the center. Any thoughts what we can put for the center?
That's where I used to use a table, and it was one of the sort of generic ship tables because it was kind of an octagon, and you sink it in so just the top shows. All right, so the platform disc needs to be lower.
Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed when I was making mine, is that the assets had this level of precision required for them that was like 0.01 or less. Yeah. Otherwise, it just doesn't look right.
Yeah. Yeah, and the old platforms are sit up a little ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there we go. That's looking better.
Yeah, that's about more like what you want.
My light still a little too recessed, but we can work with that.
So what I'd suggest for this configuration is, you know, how that platform asset has kind of two differently textured areas on the edges.
Yes.
So instead of all of these little individual pads going in a complete circle around the middle, do like one to the north, one to the south, and then two each on the side, one above the other, if you catch my drift.
Okay, so sorry, say that again.
So kind of like a what would you call it? An octagon pattern? Or a hexagon pattern, actually.
Okay. So you're thinking two here, and what? Two here, two here, two here, two here, or are you thinking like 2, 2, 2, 2?
I'm thinking 6 total. So you got one all the way to the north, one all the way to the south, and then 2 on the east side, 2 on the west side.
Okay. I get my Y values right, and then I can just copy paste them. Links we will go to for a transporter pad. Okay, so that's looking much better. Very TOS-y. But you never know how old this station is.
Yeah, or what stuff they had to find to build it or retrofit it.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of said that I have thought about the station being like a recommission of a decommissioned station.
Something like that. Actually, probably looks like there's room for more of those things than I was thinking, so. We can just rough that in now, and you can play with the values later on to get it all exactly equidistant.
Oh,
I know usually when I do this, I have to break out the calculator and do some maths.
I don't know if that'll be necessary. I just need to get them roughly in place.
I actually did math on one of my mines because I was placing several things so they formed a regular grid. I put a few of them down so I could figure out the exact spacing I needed, and then I used math to calculate the positions of the rest of them.
Oh, I'm guessing you used the Cardassian table 08 for.
For the little individual beam
For
out
the center?
places, yeah. For the center, it was not that because it was needed a bigger one. Look for one that was kind of have a hexagon top to it.
Okay, I know the one you're talking about. Not that one.
That doesn't have chairs with it.
Yeah,
That's
That
the
was a
one.
Klingon table.
generic ship
hexagon Klingon table.
04.
Oh, okay.
That is still very small.
Well, see if it works, and if not, we can find something else. Or
Alright,
move those in a
so-
little bit closer.
That may be what I need to do.
Yeah, actually, that's the configuration I was trying to describe earlier.
Yeah. I kind of guessed. Alright, good enough for our purposes for now.
Yep. And then we'll need some kind of transporter operator console. And then that's probably about it. Or maybe some kind of reception desk.
True.
Check in here
True.
before you and find out where to go.
Maybe we can put one of the 3 Frankies in here at a desk.
Okay, so the table needs to come up a little bit. So that start pretty good.
And a desk, any preference?
Probably not Emerald Quinn's desk.
They're not fancy enough for that.
Probably one of those white ones there.
Maybe we can do it like right over here. Noticing that there is really not much in the way of Klingon or and there's Klingon and Romulan tables, but not really.
Well, that was one of the more interesting things is that the Klingon and Romulan maps don't really seem to have separate things for tables. Like, this character is in New Romulus Command, so I'm going to go look at Admiral Carrerek's desk to see exactly what it is. Okay, Carrerek's desk, aside from the fancy holographic displays he has on his desk, It's just a sheet of glass on two podiums, basically. They're not even matching podiums. I just realized that. It's kind of weird. Actually, it looks like the two podium things are have the holographic emitters that create the holographic displays in them. And the rest of it's just this big old thick pane of glass.
The funny thing is we've actually got a TOS transporter console.
We do.
Does it
Let's
make
use
any
it.
sense for... Say, does it make any sense for...
Oh, I don't know. Gotta have some fun with it a little bit. Right?
Note that it's the computer console, not the transporter pad.
Yeah,
So it was that thing that Scotty would stand next to and push the buttons.
Yeah.
I actually used it in the Beta-Rana instance, and I stuck it along the wall in the room where I put the
Yeah, I used it as well in the...
because, well, like I mentioned before, the buttons on it look kind of sort of like...
Yeah. I used it when I built Starbase 1 because I had some transporter pads on that.
Of course, if we wanted a more traditional or more modern Federation console,
Yeah,
we
you
got
could
this
use one of the ESD ones. I think we should use the TOS one.
Why not? Here, swap out this desk for the TOS desk then.
Because, budget cuts.
Oh yeah, I mean, I like the idea that it's like the Fringe, and so
They got to make do.
that's why the transporter doesn't look quite as modern. But hey, it works.
I'd say move the console a little bit closer to the pad. Just a little. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really big room.
Yeah, it's a fairly small console.
Actually, what I might do is just move the entire thing towards the middle.
There you go. All right, let's preview that, see what we got.
So stick this over here so it's a little closer to where people walk through.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got patch notes up for tomorrow. New episode, Time and Tide, which apparently we're going to go see the signing of the Temporal Accords. That'll be interesting.
I assume that isn't all we're going to do.
No, probably not.
And I imagine it somehow connects with the kind of...
It could, because that's, of course, the
Or they're not cool.
anniversary ship.
Ooh, wait a second. I just realized something about the Temporal Accords that might make for a very interesting mission. Well, it's simple. Who was a signatory of the Temporal Accord?
Do we know anything about that? Other than
Yes.
a word that
Actually,
Daniels mentioned?
We do know that at least two of the parties that were in the Temporal Accord,
Well,
the Federation and the Nakul. The Nakul signed the Temporal Accord. Granted, this seems to be a matter of sign it or we will declare war on you, but, they signed it.
and according to Enterprise, they don't seem to have a problem breaking it.
Well, they basically
Got my
just
table
sat
behind.
back and waited until they'd found what they considered to be an opportune moment to break it.
Yeah, I just had a funny idea.
I like funny ideas. Pax reminds me that there are a couple of Foundry notes. As we reported, they were on Tribble last time. Added a small omega molecule as a detail object, and added a closed Dyson sphere door as a detail object. And also updated the Dyson map. I'm going to quote here: the pointy down bits aren't simultaneously open and closed, and removed the invisible collision around the platform in the main room. Obviously, I'm guessing Zero wrote these patch notes.
I love that she calls it the pointy down bits.
Yeah.
It's got a stack of Latinum there sitting next to the desk. It's a Ferengi. She's gonna have a.
Yeah.
He's there. He's there
Or
to
maybe,
conduct trade.
Maybe this is dispersed to starship crews heading out, so they have something to trade with should the need arise.
Yeah, I don't think the Unknown Regions uses gold pressed Latinum.
How do we know?
The Ferengi did seem to treat it as a universal trade currency. Actually, you know what? Star Trek Enterprise, that was something that they traded with certain of those alien traders, that not Ferengi, mind you. So,
All
right, so you thinking this is about...
Fits there.
Yeah. I try to adjust multiple things in each preview, and sometimes I forget about things. There's the table.
There's the table. This needs to be just a little bit lower.
Now, we are not placing any NPCs in here.
No. We'll leave that for people to do on their own.
All right, I kind of want to hear from our chat room. What do you guys think?
This
We're all talking about patch notes and not about what we're doing here.
Yeah.
All right, so I might know, but yeah, that's more or less where we want it.
Pretty good. This, of course, is not a big season update, so we won't have to have any downtime. I don't think so, anyway, unless, obviously, last year we had some issues with lag that started during this event. I think for sure centered around the Omega minigame, the Omega Molecule minigame.
yeah, apparently
they turned
the
off the
Omega
Foundry for-
thing... The Omega thing kind of like induced massive lag just because you have thousands of people running around doing things normally they wouldn't even think about.
Ranger Ryu says he thinks it's odd they kept a transporter console but brought in brand new Federation consoles.
Actually, I am
I
not
suppose
using
that's-
any of the new Federation consoles. They're all the older launch ones.
It's a shame they don't
So-
have all the old LCARs on them. That'd make it really
Well,
easy.
I mean, I could pull up the civilian ones that have those janky whatever.
Wait,
No,
wait,
'cause
wait. I just thought of something. Some of the civilian consoles are actually wall panels. They're like
Okay.
big, like flat screen TV sort of wall panels.
Yeah,
And
you
that
notice
have those
in
old
the,
like great
in that bridge map.
It's kind of sort of like a schematic diagram of sensor readings or something, but it's not like an MSD or anything like that.
I have to ask Pax, is nice and lived in good or bad?
I think it means it's good.
There's a little bit more tweaking I want to do with the lounge,
Mhm.
but
But I think we're
that's,
basically done.
Yeah.
But we'll let people watch this episode and
hey,
give
look,
us
it's
some
our
comments.
starship's in orbit.
Yeah, there goes your starship in orbit.
Let's see, we're at about 87 assets, so it's
That's
slightly
not too
less
bad.
than my bridge. Still means I'm gonna have to take an evening going through and writing down all of the values for this.
Mhm. Well, we appreciate your sacrifice.
Yes, for the good of the Foundry.
Exactly. All right. Well, we will we will call that good for the moment, and revisit what people think of this next
Okay.
episode.
Yep. So, good community question.
Yes. But for now, if you want to throw up our contact info.
Okay. Can be reached by email at foundryroundtable@live.com. We are also on Twitter at Foundry Roundtab. Dragoon can be reached at Dragoon1701. Mark can be reached at Markhawkman, and I can be reached at Greendragoon. And this show's community question is, what do you think of the interior? What would you change, add, remove? Do you like what we got? Do you hate it? Is it horrible? Should we never podcast again? Oh, I'm sorry.
Wishful thinking. You're just trying to get out of transcribing all of these asset coordinates.
No. Definitely, certainly not that.
Certainly not that. All right. Well, for the time being, we will say goodnight.
Night.
Good night.